Welcome to Grammar 3G. In this book, we'll go over direct objects, not as an adverb, and sentence diagramming with direct objects and contractions. So let's jump right into direct objects. A direct object is a noun or pronoun that receives the action of the verb. So let's get into an example sentence so we can see what that means. Here we have the sentence, grandfather quietly whittles the wood. First, let's find our subject, which is grandfather. What is he doing in this sentence? He is whittling, which means to carve. So what is being carved in this sentence? Wood. Wood is receiving the action of the verb. Therefore, it is the direct object. So, as you can see, a direct object is a noun in the predicate, but it's not a predicate nominative because it's receiving the action. So let's look at a direct object versus a predicate nominative so you can understand the difference. Here we have two sentences. Molly hugs her friend. Molly is a good friend. First, let's find our subject and verb for each of the sentence. In our first sentence, our subject is Molly and our verb is hugs. So let's look at the second sentence. We have Molly as our subject again, but our verb is. So let's see what the difference is between these two. We have that first sentence, Molly hugs her friend. Well, what is happening to her friend? The friend is receiving the action of the hug, receiving the action of the main verb. Therefore, we have a direct object. Whereas in the second sentence, we don't have an action verb. Therefore, the noun and the predicate cannot receive the action since there is no action. So that makes it a predicate nominative. Molly is a good friend. What is Molly? A good friend. So that is renaming Molly. It's a predicate nominative. Now we're going to look at not as an adverb. Here we have a sentence, I did not go. So let's find our subject first, I, and let's find our verb phrase next, did go. So what is not doing in this sentence? What is its function? Well, it's not describing the verb. Instead, what it's doing is negating the verb. So we can just say that it's modifying the action of this sentence. Therefore, it is an adverb, and it's telling you what did not happen in this sentence. You did not go. So now let's look at it as a contraction. So here we have the same sentence, but it's contracted. We have I didn't go. So once again, our subject is I, and our verb phrase is did go. So what is happening with the NT of didn't? It's describing or modifying the main verb, negating what happened. So that is how you'll work with not as an adverb. Remember, it's not part of the verb, even when it's contracted. It's always an adverb. So now let's look at how we're going to diagram NT as an adverb. So here we have the sentence, we won't start the test yet. First, let's find our subject and verb phrase. Those will usually be the easiest things when we're working with sentence diagrams. So we have we as our subject, and remember that won't is a contraction of will not. So our verb phrase will be will start. And then let's find our other parts of the sentence. What won't we start? The test. The test is receiving the action of being started. So that is our direct object. We have the describing test. It's an article, which is a special adjective. And then we've got the NT of won't and yet left over. Both of these are adverbs. Remember, NT is not, and that is negating the main verb, and yet is an adverb that is telling us when we will start the test. So now that we've identified each part of this sentence, let's go ahead and create our diagram. We have our horizontal line bisected by the long line that makes us separate the subject and the predicate. And then for direct objects, we use this little half line after the predicate line. And that helps us separate out the verb phrase from the noun, which is the direct object. And of course, we've got some describing words for the verb and a describing word for the direct object. So this is going to be our skeleton of the diagram. Let's fill in the missing pieces. So we have we as our subject, our verb phrase is will start, and then our adverbs are not and yet, so those are describing the verb phrase, and then we have test as our direct object, and test is being modified by the, an article. And that's how we're going to diagram sentences with NT, contracted form of not. Now let's look at sentence diagramming with just a general contraction of a verb and noun or pronoun. Here we have the sentence, they'll wrap presents. So first, let's find our subject, which is they. Notice how it's only they is underlined, not the IL of will, because that is not part of the subject, similar to NT in the previous example. Our verb phrase is will wrap. We are double underlining the two L's of they'll to be a part of the verb phrase. And then what is being wrapped is presence, therefore it's the direct object because it's receiving the action of the main verb. Now we're going to make our diagram, and we are going to put they as our subject, will wrap as our verb phrase, and remember we've got that half line to separate out the verb phrase from the noun, which is the direct object, and put the direct object after that, which is presence. And that's how you will diagram a sentence with a contraction and a direct object. If you have any questions over any of the stuff in this book or over grammar in general, be sure to contact the person who grades your grammar at the center.